Thank you, Amira, and I think that's a very good way to transition into the panel. I want to say that I'm very pleased to be virtually surrounded by two important representatives of the sovereign debt issuing community, and similarly by two important representatives of the asset management sector. So I have the pleasure now to open the panel, and I'll start asking Cesar a question with regards to Colombia's experience in enabling reporting and monitoring framework, or what kind of existing mechanisms are there in place that can possibly make possible tracking, monitoring progress towards achieving national sustainable development priorities in the country. So Cesar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. My thanks to the World Bank Group for convening this event. And it's an honor to be sharing the panel with Anthony, with Michael, with Oli, experts in this issue. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I think that the idea is to have time to exchange experiences. We made two decisions in Colombia with regard to ESG financing. First, to go in the order of the letters. We start by E, green, then we go to S, which is social, and governance at the end. And the second decision that we made is that we wanted to have 4 pillars in our green financing strategy. The first pillar is institutionality. We spent all of last year persuading Congress to include in our multi-year public borrowing law a legal authorization to the Ministry of Finance to be in charge of the elaboration, execution, and reporting of the frameworks for thematic bonds. This is important for us for 2 reasons. One, legitimacy. Although it is not always easy to go to Congress, now we can say that we don't have consensus on everything, but that we have a strong agreement in Congress from different political parties on the importance of this policy for the years to come. And second, it's important for continuity, because regardless of which party or which administration is in office, there should be an effort that, with the mandate of the law and the institutional capacity, should continue over time. The second pillar is adherence to our international commitment of the Paris Agreement. Colombia committed to a 20% to 30% reduction in its carbon emissions by 2030. Just to give you some sense, we issue around 275 million tons. It's a relatively small proportion of the world, but it will require something of a reduction between 50 to 80 million tons of emissions by 2030. And recently, our president made a commitment to start incorporating the notion of carbon neutrality by 2050. How did we do that? We spent all last year building a green portfolio from every single line in our budgets for 2020, 2021, and 2022. We built a green framework with the help of the Inter-American Development Bank, and today, both things, the green portfolio and the green framework, is being peer reviewed by an international third party, which the World Bank is actually helping us to support that effort. The third principle of our strategy is capital market development. Unlike many other emerging markets, we decided that we were going to launch our green bonds in the Colombian market for 2 reasons. One, because of the size. Second, because of the scrutiny. We want to be in the market through auctions. We're going to be launching monthly auctions of around $100 million, starting in July and going until December of this year in the local market. And when I say local market, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's for Colombian investors. Our local market is internationalized. Around 35% of our holdings are from foreign accounts across the world. And this is also important because we would like to satisfy both active and passive investors through the auctions in the primary market, but we will also be eligible at that pace in a matter of 12 months to be included in the indexes that are tracked by portfolio managers, not only for Colombian local currency bonds, but also for sustainability thematic bonds. And the final part of our strategy is greening fiscal policy and business plans. So we figure out that there is a big challenge on defining what is green. And we launch a process of defining a Colombian taxonomy in the 5 main areas of our framework for green financing. Those areas are climate change adaptation, renewable energy, water and waste management, protection of biodiversity, and sustainable transportation. So in each of those areas, there will be a quote-unquote dictionary of what it means to be green, either in energy, in water, and so far and so on. And this is important because I think that will help to quantify our results and to maximize the impact for investors. I'll leave it up there, and hopefully we'll have some time for exchange.
I think I have a question that can apply to both Cesar and Anthony. Can sovereign issuers obtain lower borrowing costs by issuing thematic bonds? I think that can apply to both of you. So probably I will go back to Cesar, and then we will move on to Anthony. So Cesar, if you can address that question. And there is an additional question for you, which regards to what sort of challenges the Ministry of Finance in Colombia had to face in terms of having this taxonomy or legal framework agreed on by Congress. What other lessons learned can you draw from there for other countries that might want to go the same road? So Cesar, the floor is yours. Let's try to stay very concise so we can wrap it up in time.
Thank you, Marcelo. 2 questions. I'll try to be brief. On the first one, yes, we are very inspired by the example of Germany with the twin bonds. So they effectively launch a conventional bond with the same financial conditions than a green bond. And they actually offer investors the possibility to move from one to the other. And you can track the conditions in Bloomberg or any other reporting tool, and there is definitely a greenium. In some cases it's 5 basis points, in some other cases it's 10 basis points. So I think there is definitely a benefit to issue well-supported green paper, and in my view it has 3 benefits. First, it truly diversifies your investor base, which is important. Second, it may help you on lowering your borrowing costs. And third, and someone mentioned it, I think it was Carmen, they tend to be more resilient. Now that we went through COVID and you can test the behavior of prices and interest rates on some of those issuers that have already issued, and I'm curious to know what Anthony has to say, probably you will see more resilience in the green bonds than in the conventionals, but that's an open question. Challenges. Let me be a little bit controversial and launch this idea. There is a big issue to solve in the investor community and the issuance community between use of proceeds and assessing impact. And it's not easy to solve this issue. Today, we have sort of 2 avenues to go. There are one school of thought that likes earmarking. Just make sure that every single dollar that I give you through an investment is spent in a rigorous way to generate an impact. And then you have sort of the other stream in which more flexible, you have the ability to use your funds, but you have sustainability linked instruments that if you perform well in a couple of indicators, your interest rate can go up or down. And I think for developing countries and for emerging markets, there is also a third way to do it. And it's something in which the World Bank has a lot of experience, and it's called policy-based lending. And I give you two examples. For these first green bonds, we're going to follow sort of the earmarking scheme. But we have two issues. Reforestation, for example, something that you can track on a daily basis only, right, with the satellite information that you can track. In Colombia, for example, it is important to have a lot of security spending in those areas in the Amazon. But when I try to tell an investor that I need to invest in police forces to make sure that we reduce deforestation and promote reforestation, they are not quite sure about that. Another example, we are moving from an energy matrix that had a weight of 1% from solar and wind power generation, and we're going to move to 12%. And we did it through creating a market of options for alternative energies and sort of moving the market participants to allocate at least 10% of the energy supply and demand in this market to wind and solar. But I don't know how to relate that expenditure with the issuance of this decree and the formation of this market. So I think that the message that I want to leave is that maybe the unit of analysis for investors and for issuers is not spending or projects, but sometimes it's policies, if I have an effective policy for reforestation or deforestation. So we will continue in that continuing between earmarking, sustainability-linked bonds, and for emerging markets, something in which the World Bank is very an expert, which is the policy-based lending.